Get comfy, guys, because I'm about to ruin your day because you voted for your players of the season on the JLA Discord account, and now it's time to see if I agree. I'll also be putting forward my player of the season for each team, and I want you to decide in the comments which one you would pick out of the two. Tottenham. Now, your pick for Tottenham was Christian Romero, who took home 42.1% of the vote, which is fair because it's been a wonderful season for him at the back. However, I think his defensive partner, Mickey van der Ven, has potentially had a better season because of what he's offered, not from a stats perspective, but I think it's his recovery speed and pace when hoovering up those balls in behind, which has allowed Tottenham to play such a high line. I think that style doesn't work as well as it has done at times without someone of his quality, and has scored some important goals too. It hasn't been as good a season as last year for Brighton, but there have still been standout players. Your pick for Brighton was Pascal Gross with 50% of the vote, but has a specific player been overlooked here? Pascal Gross, of course, deserves to be in with a shout with 5.1 shot-creating actions per 90 across all competitions, which is wild. But I think we're all forgetting that goal scoring has been a problem for Brighton over the last few years, and one player stood head and shoulders above the rest with 20 goals in all competitions this season. João Pedro, in his first season, obviously coming from Watford, up into that Brighton side who are in the upper echelons of the league and playing European football as well. I think he's done brilliantly. Also, quick shout out for Adingra. 3 for you Brighton guys there. Enjoy. But who's number 1? Right. Let's be honest, with Chelsea, it's difficult to put forward an alternative. You guys went for Cole Palmer, 89.1% of the vote. There were a few other options, though, as well. And look, it's fair with Cole Palmer, given the fact that he's registered over 30 goal contributions in the Premier League alone this season. But we've still got an alternative to put up, don't you worry. Because in a season where injuries have ravaged the Chelsea squad, there's been one player who has been ever present and played more matches than anyone and has actually registered 16 goal involvements along the way in all competitions. Conor Gallagher. He has played 48 matches this season and a total of 3,882 minutes so far, which is more than any other Chelsea player by a long way. And importantly, I think he's been one of the most consistent performers as well. Nottingham Forest, your pick for Forest intrigued me quite a bit because of how much of the vote that this player took home. Now, I know it's been a tough season, but you can't deny that there have been some standout players in a squad that I like. You know, your pick for Forest was Murillo, 68.8% of the vote. He almost scored one of the goals of the season with that run against Palace. And it was between 2 players for my alternative selection. The first is Chris Wood for that run of goals and that hat-trick to give Nuno his first win against Newcastle. But my pick, my alternative pick, and I'd like you guys to vote which one of those 3 would you pick as your player of the season for his goal involvements, is Morgan Gibbs-White. He's registered 15 goal involvements in the Premier League this year. I think that's really impressive for a side who are defensive, also in a relegation battle, and I also feel like he's gone a little bit under the radar this year. Now, I'm really happy to see who the Burnley fans picked on the JLA Discord, which you can all get involved in, by the way. Link is in the description. If you want to be a part of this community on a higher level, that's the place to go. There's loads of wonderful people in there. Anyway, I think that this player has gone under the radar as one of the better signings this season, but it may be a tough task to keep him in the summer because Burnley fans selected Sander Berge as their player of the season with 42.9% of the vote. And this may be unpopular, but I think there may be people sleeping on Muric, the goalkeeper. Now, he's had his moments, as have several Burnley players this year. I think that's been a big part of why they've gone down. It's just poor individual errors at times. But if he had played more games this year, I think there would be a lot more people speaking about him. For context, James Trafford, who obviously has a lot of hype around him, over 28 games this season, has a post-shot expected goals of -5.9. Meanwhile, in just 13 games, Muric has a post-shot XG of +6.6, which is really impressive. This next player really surprised me in terms of your vote, but then when I thought about it, it made sense. Over 40% went for this player, but when you look at the highlights from him this season, it's a fair shout. Then when you look at the stats, you do understand how invaluable Anthony Robinson is for Fulham in how he gets up and down and how hard he is to beat one-on-one. My pick has been based around goals for Fulham because they've been hard to come by with no clear Mitrovic replacement arising. And this player has become a nailed-on starter this season for his goals. Rodrigo Muniz, Premier League Player of the Month in March, by the way, has scored 9 goals this season from an XG of 8.7, which shows he's very good and shows that he's going to be a huge player, I think, for the next few seasons for Fulham, which will end up saving them a lot of money as well. Now, when you think of Liverpool's season, it's been a good year generally, but when you think of their best player this season, I think the question becomes actually a little bit more tricky, and that's why I was surprised I was really surprised that this player got 42% of the vote, especially when I think that there's been a better performer for Liverpool this season. Now, the player that you chose for this was Virgil van Dijk, but my choice is Alexis McAllister, who's been so impressive both as a 6 and as an 8 this season, with 9 goal involvements and some absolute Barclays goals within that. And the reason I put him just ahead of Virgil van Dijk is that I didn't expect Virgil van Dijk to get to these levels again, but we have seen them before. He's also been playing in the same position every single week. And so for McAllister to come to a new club, step in, have to deal with the, not malaise, but the difficulties around that midfield and it not being settled at all this season, and to play as well as he has done in positions that he doesn't really want to play sometimes, I think is a massive achievement. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Crystal Palace. Now, okay, this one surprised me the most of any team because I had him 4th on my list of Palace's Player of the Year. So for Palace, you have chosen Jefferson Lerma, who got an impressive 37.5% of the vote. I did not see that name coming. But ahead of him, I've got Elise, I've got Eze, obviously, he's wonderful, and Joachim, I can never say it right, Anderson, I think that's right. Even Wharton, I think based off half a season, could be in there. But my pick for the entirety of the season, I'm going to go for Anderson, who has been one of the most steady performers in the Palace team, regardless of the manager. We're talking about a lot of players getting snapped up or eaten up or gobbled up by those big teams. And Anderson, I think, is another one that is certainly capable of going into an Arsenal side, for example, and doing well. I'm not saying he's better than Gabriel or Saliba. I'm just saying he's that good. He could play for one of those title-challenging teams. Also, I think we've got to remember that if Elise played more matches, I think he would have been the no-brainer for him this year. Now, the player voted in from West Ham fans has quickly taken the Mr. West Ham mantle from Declan Rice this season, who, of course, took it from Mark Noble the season before. And looks like he'll go on to be the player that you look back on as one of West Ham's best in a few years. And that's why Jarrod Bowen got an impressive 70%, 70.6 in fact, of the vote. His 30 goal involvements across all competitions make him super hard to ignore, and the fact that he was playing as a striker instead of a wide forward. You can have the debate over which one he's better at, but the fact that he's able to do both, I think is very, very impressive when you've got to deal with that kind of... what's the word? What am I looking... What's the word I'm looking for? No, it's ridiculous. Adversity. When you're dealing with that kind of adversity, you're going to put this in, aren't you? When you're dealing with this kind of adversity, I think, and you're still getting the numbers that he's got, I think that just shows how good a player he is and how he probably deserves a lot more hype than he gets. But ignoring him is what we're going to do here. Sorry, Jarrod. As we put forward our alternative. And I think this player doesn't get as much hype as he should because he's been quietly performing really well in a side that doesn't necessarily play the style of football that best suits him. He's still managed to get 15 goal involvements and has also created a whopping 115 shot-creating actions over the course of the season. Lucas Paquetá. Brentford. Now, in Tony's absence, the questions heading into the season was always going to be about where the goals would come from. And your choice for Brentford represents a very, very good choice, in my opinion. Because Yoane Wissa has scored 11 goals this season and is the only Brentford player to get into double digits. He is a fantastic finisher, and that's why he got 50% of the vote. But my selection, I think it's been based off consistency and what he offers to Brentford. And this player has created the most shot-creating actions for Brentford with a total of 86 this year and offers so much to their approach. I've gone for Matthias Jensen. Well done, Matthias. Now, I expected this player to be selected for Wolves because he's been so fun to watch this year. He's added goals to his game. When there were perhaps questions about it when he signed for Wolves, Matheus Cunha took 42.9% of the Wolves vote. And I understand that for his ball carrying, but also the 12 Premier League goals that he scored this year, that hat-trick against Chelsea. But again, there has been a player that has gone under the radar. And for me, I think he's been one of the better defensive midfielders outside the top 6. João Gomez has totaled 140 tackles and interceptions this year for Wolves. And he's been so important in Wolves' transition play as well. And before you get angry, I know Mario Lemina has also been wonderful, but I had to pick someone, and I've gone for Gomez. Bear a grudge if you so must. Now, I'm so glad that Man United fans have chosen their player of the season to be this player, because often they don't get the credit that they deserve. And I feel like it's been a tough one, right, for Man United. But regardless of where he's played, I think he's been one of the more dependable players for Man United, and that's Diogo Dalot with 35.4% of the vote. I am still on the fence when it comes to his ceiling, but I think he's absolutely been one of the best players this year and has really, really grown and led at times, I think, in terms of not sort of wavering in terms of his confidence, which I think is a great sign for them. And it may be in a better setup with better players around him when injuries come back, then it could really allow him to go that next step further in his career. But as always, we have put forward an alternative, and it's a pretty easy one, I think, based on goal involvements and chance creation. Look, in all competitions, Bruno Fernandes has 26 goal involvements and 122 key passes. For context, the player with the second most key passes is Garnacho with 47. But who would you go for, Man United fans? Let me know in the comments down below. I'll be there, I'll be looking, I'll be reading them, I'll be gutted when you troll me. Please don't troll me. Just at the end of the season, can we all just be friends? Sheffield United. I'm annoyed at this one because the Sheffield United vote has made it very tough for me to put forward an alternative. Because the Sheffield United choice, with 83.3% of the vote, was Gustavo Hamer, who has shown this season that he is a Premier League player and we'll likely see him again in the league next year. I'm going to put forward my alternative based on the stats this time. More specifically, tackles and interceptions. Now, I know pointing out defensive stats aren't really what you want to be looking at when you've got a team that's conceded over 100 goals. But without this player, obviously it could have been a lot more. Vinicius Souza has put in a total of 153 tackles and interceptions this year, which is actually very good. The next highest is Jayden Bogle with 97. But the correct answer is Gus Hamer. Now, this may divide opinion, but I think it's such a valid shout. 71.4% of you guys thought it should be Jared Branthwaite picking up this award, and I can understand why, right? Not only a breakthrough season in the Premier League for him, but also helping Everton to stay up, scoring in a Merseyside derby. However, I think one player has won more points for Everton this season, and that man is Jordan Pickford. He's got the second most clean sheets this season, and that cannot be underestimated. And I think it is because he's been there so long and he's been such a stalwart for them. Now, there's probably been a lot of division, a lot of tension in this video, but I think we may be very aligned on City's choice, but I was still shocked that he took so much of the vote, especially when you consider one of Man City's players has had a phenomenal season. So your selection, Man City fans, on the JLA Discord channel was Rodri, 44.6% of the vote. But I think it's so hard to look past Phil Foden. They really are side by side. I'm really intrigued to hear what you guys think in the comments, because I think I might sneak towards Rodri, but I'd love to know if you can put a better case for Phil Foden, because he may be the player of the season for the whole league with the goal involvements, but also the big moments, I think, as well, that he's delivered. The hat-trick against Villa, the brace against Man United, the hat-trick against Brentford, all have to come into mind, despite Rodri being probably the most irreplaceable player in this Man City team. When you think of Luton this year, your mind automatically goes to this one player. And even if Luton do go down, I think this player will be by no means short of offers this summer. And that, of course, is Ross Barkley. He had an impressive 60% of your vote. But, of course, there is always an alternative. And if you want to be really hipster, which we love to do here, why not? Then I think it has to be Elijah Adebayo. He's got 10 goals. And as a target man, I don't think you can fault him for, but also fault him for that incredible work rate, which is fantastic. I think he's shown that he is a Premier League player, and I think that has to be recognised. Champions League bound, Aston Villa. Now, I was surprised that this player didn't get about 90% of the vote, because when you break down Ollie Watkins' numbers and the fact that he scored 24 goals without taking penalties and registered 13 assists, without taking set pieces, it's absolutely insane. Watkins got 69.4% of the Aston Villa vote, and that got me thinking, who else has been good for Aston Villa this season that we can't look past when we're putting forward that silver medal? Because I think, look, this is an easy one, isn't it? And this player, I think, can't be overlooked when it comes to the second spot. He's played as a defensive midfielder, he's played as a 10, and even out wide at times, all whilst captaining the side to a top 4 finish. Put some respect on my Scottish brethren, John McGinn. There's a lot of good players at Newcastle, and I think a lot of them have had some really great moments this season. Loads of positives to take, I think, when you look a little bit deeper. One player who's really kicked on this year is Anthony Gordon, and that's who took the award based on the vote with an impressive 67.4% of the vote. His majority is really impressive, because I've been really impressed with other Newcastle players as well this year. I think in terms of, look, you understand the focus has been on Gordon a little bit, but Bruno is a joke. Look, we've spoken about on this channel. You can go check out the videos. Anthony Gordon, his world-class movement. But Bruno, when he came through the door, we did a video a long time ago telling you guys this guy's a joke, and he continues to be. But I'm not actually even going to go with him, because Alexander Isak, his goal record is a joke. Like, that's a joke. It's more of a joke than Bruno. It's close. 20 goals this season from only 25 Premier League starts. I'll say that again. 20 goals this season from only 25 Premier League starts. That is so impressive. And at 24, he's only going to get better. Bournemouth is the only club that couldn't make a decision, as 2 players had 29.6% of the vote, Lewis Cook and Ilya Zabarnyi. But even with this, we're going to put forward an alternative choice. This is a massive shot for me, because surely it's got to be Dominic Solanke, right? I find it mad that it's not him. 19 goals speaks for itself, in my opinion. He scored 36% of all Bournemouth's goals in the Premier League this season, which I think is so impressive considering the attacking talent that they have this year. Now, there's hipster and there's hipster. Calm it down, Bournemouth fans. Calm it down. Huge season for Arsenal, of course, and huge season for a lot of their players, which made this super difficult, of course. Probably a nightmare for Arsenal fans. I mean, there could have been 6 nominees for this award, but firstly, your choice, which was Declan Rice. And I completely understand it with the recent performance against Bournemouth, but also other huge moments against Man United, Luton, Chelsea, all make him a great choice. But I'm going to go rogue here. I'm going to put up a name that you're probably not going to expect me to say. Let's all say it after 3 and see if we say the same name. 1, 2, 3. Gabriel. Yeah. Now, I understand Saliba is a joke, but the performances of Gabriel this season, I think, have been absolutely astounding. He's been part of the best defence in the league, and we're forgetting that at the start of the season, Arteta was moving things about, pieces about, and you were wondering if he was even going to start. But Gabriel is now one of the most important players in the team. Also, we did our team of the season live. If you've missed that one, make sure you check out this video right here.